Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to the podcast. This is Big Reptile Talk. And if you know me, you know I'm Derek. I have been away for quite a while, probably over at least a year. I used to do podcasts with just so many amazing people, and I decided to take a break and step back for a while. And then being in a hobby, I noticed that I feel like we're lacking something. And I feel like nobody gives our pioneers enough credit. And what I mean by that is, you know, we have so many pioneers in our hobby, and I think that they deserve their flowers. And I came back because I want to tell their story. I feel like because, you look at our pioneers, when they're gone, they're gone. I got a chance to do a podcast with Brian Barchek, and I watch it at least once a week, and it's something that I'm glad that I got a chance to talk to him, but I'm sad because I never get that chance to do it again. I messaged Dingo, and he told me maybe. I have the message. He told me maybe. I feel like there's so many amazing people in our hobby, and I want to chat with them and tell their story. And even for the new people coming into the hobby, I don't want their stories to be forgotten because they have done so many insane things. So today, we are going to be talking with Kevin from Nerd, such a pioneer in our hobby. This is going to be a treat. You don't want to miss this. Stick around.
Whoa. Big reptile talk. Yeah, we working. Big reptile talk. When it comes to talking about snakes, yeah, know that we got for them we take. Yeah, big reptile talk. Let's talk about reptiles. Yeah, big reptile talk. Let's talk about reptiles.
Mr. Kevin, how you doing today, sir?
Hello, buddy. How are you?
Excited to get this chance to talk to you, man, because like I said, you're here and I want to give you your flowers. You are a pioneer of our hobby.
I like the introduction. We need to talk to these people before they're dead.
Okay, but you get what I'm saying? Like, I feel like you have so many stories, and I feel like they need to be told. Like for instance, I want to give you one. Like this is gonna be the first question. I want to talk about something. Steve Irwin. First off, you went on a late night talk show with Steve Irwin. This is gonna be like a long question. How did you even get the chance to work with Steve Irwin? What was going through your mind when you were on TV with him? And what was like one thing Steve said to you that just stuck with you?
Well, I met Steve through a guy out in California who was basically trying to arrange animals for Steve. So Steve would come here from Australia, and he would go actually like Fox and Friends, Regis and Kathy Lee, Good Morning America, Tony Danza, and Conan O'Brien. I was like involved in all that. So he basically contacted me through one of my friends who was my employee for a long time, this guy named Josh. And Josh ended up being the assistant director of the Irwin Zoo for 7 years. And so Josh said, hey, this guy over here's got all these amazing animals. So if Steve's in the New York area, I think you want to connect with this guy. So they reached out to me and they said, we need, these animals. And I said, well, what do you want? And they go, we want this, this, and this. And I'm like, I have everything. So they lined me up to go do Fox and Friends in the morning. So I brought like the big alligator, big water monitor, big alligator, Bubba the snapping turtle, Wally, my alligator, Poseidon, my water monitor, and some other stuff. And I brought a bunch of extra stuff, and I had never met Steve. So before doing it, he was like, he always wants to know, like, tell me about these animals. So, if I bring like a rhino iguana, he's like, give me a couple bullet points. something cool that he can go out on camera. And he immediately was super friendly. Obviously I was a fan, but he is exactly as you see. He's super just down to earth. He just talks a little bit of smack, but super friendly, super wanted to talk to me. And he's like, oh, this is great. He loved Wally because Wally, a lot of big alligators or medium-sized alligators, they'll often like walk a couple feet and then they just lay down. He loved Wally because Wally would keep walking. And he's like, Wally is amazing. He loved Wally, picked Wally up. So he did the Fox and Friends thing. We had Bulldozer, the rhino iguana. We had Wally. We had Poseidon. And that worked really well. So I jived really well with Steve. And then he's like, okay, we want this guy. So he's like, I want, whenever we're doing any of this New York, East Coast stuff, let's get Kevin. So they brought me in a couple different times. And it worked out so well. Steve was coming back to do this tour where he was going to go interface with like vets and different stuff like that and do all this crazy stuff. And we were set to do Madison Square Garden on New Year's Eve. And we were going to do like all the crazy animals. So I was going to be bringing a whole lot of animals there and doing that. And he was going to launch the whole thing. And so I would give him all his, props, essentially, his animals. And he died in October. And that was really, obviously really horrific. And what a massive loss it was for conservation, for children that love animals, that could be loving animals, because he naturally was affecting so many people in such a great way. We can't replicate that. We can't just capture that. So we can always live in these shadows, but we can never be what Steve Irwin was, because he was the perfect formula. He was larger than life. We love to hear him talk, the Aussie accent, highly intelligent guy, super motivated, very charismatic, had great skills handling his animals. So I did the Conan O'Brien, and Conan is like a clown. He's like such a joker. He's just like, we go out there, I get this ultrasound, and like immediately the ultrasound starts screwing up. And we bring out an anaconda that's, gravid. And it was, we got it to work and stuff like that. But it was, it just happened so fast. So, I obviously thought there was going to be more, because I was having a good relationship. And then I had a relationship with Terry and Bindi and Robert, but Robert was very small. Bindi, super like wonderful, very just really keyed in on her mom, always looked at her mom for like any advice, but just really well taken care of. Her mom just presented her very well. So just high caliber people.
I love that. I love that. Now, this is incredible. Kevin Mccurley, Steve Irwin. Now my question to you is like, when it comes to Steve, what was one thing he said to you that just really stuck with you? Did he say anything that just really stuck with you to this day?
That's a really good question. I think, I don't know if he said something in particular, but he wanted to know about all sorts of my animals like I had. What else do you have? What else? Can you bring that? And, he was like, so this anaconda doesn't bite? And I'm like, not that he cared, but he's like, this is amazing. The anaconda. And then, I really don't know if there's one little thing, but what was really, really great was just he was very down to earth. He could have a conversation like we're doing. So give you a contrast, Jeff Corwin. So we used to supply Jeff Corwin stuff, night and day difference. Here's a person that started out decent, turned into the most arrogant jerk you've ever seen. And it was like, well, Steve Irwin is way more elevated than you, has way more capacity than you. And Jeff Corwin was like, is this going to bite me? I need another shirt. It's like too hot in here, blah, 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 blah. And he was just like, so unpleasant. And clearly the animals are not a gimmick, but they are pretty much like a prop. Whereas Steve was like, tell me about what kind of stuff you have. And, oh, you got to bring this, and you got to bring that, and all this different stuff. So I wish I could tell you something. And, you know, he was a little bored at night, and he's like, you know, what can you do around here? You know? And I'm like, I'm from here, you know? So he's like, you know, I'm bored. And he's like, what's fun to do? And I'm like, I'm in the same boat as you are. You know, I don't come from New York.
Right. I love that. So freaking incredible, man. Now I gotta ask this. Now I want you to time travel. Okay, we love nerd, home run, right? But I want you to go back before nerd. What were you doing before you came up with the idea? I want to start nerd. What were you doing? You're like, you know what? I want to start a reptile company. What were you doing before then?
Oh yeah, that's funny. Okay, so just like all of you guys, just an animal lover, hobbyist. So I went to school for electronics and computers. So I worked in the high tech field. I worked in a research and development lab for electronics. And I'm like making circuitry, designing new stuff. And I like electronics. I like, you know, real technical stuff and prototyping stuff and all. I like to invent stuff. So anyway, so I was working in there, and I had somebody at work that I wanted to murder. And I was like, I cannot get along with this person. And it was really like, I really loved my job, but this one person, he and I, this very passive aggressive fighting, and somebody undid the wheel bolts on my Trans Am. And when I was driving onto the highway, my tire came flying off my car, and the whole car spun around and wiped out. And I knew, you know, he and I were like really at odds, and somebody had stolen my wallet out of my toolbox at work. And then they started all sorts of random charges and all this different stuff. And I knew it was him. So, and I wanted to murder him. And I'm like, so I went to my boss, Sandra, and I'm like, look, I can't handle this. And I'm like, I'm feeling like violent. And I'm like, I know he did it. And she's like, well, you don't have proof. And I'm like, you're right. I don't have any proof. And I was like, all right, I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice. And I get my 2 weeks notice, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I had my reptile collection, and I was just, my reptile room was like 12 foot by 22 foot. And it was just packed wall to wall reptiles. And I was breeding reptiles and keeping reptiles, but you know, I did as many wrong things as I might have done a couple right things. And I had a little bit of money saved, and I had a friend who's like, well, why don't you go to New Hampshire? Because I was in Massachusetts, and the laws are better, more lenient for the different cool reptiles you can keep in New Hampshire. And he's like, you know, come up to New Hampshire. So I went and found a office space that was commercial. And I was like, well, if I pay 6 months ahead of my rent, I can start building caging and do all this different stuff and move my animals there. And I didn't even know what I was doing. So I found a space, I prepaid 6 months, and I'm like, well, if by the time 6 months rolls around, this is so naive, and I can't get it to make its own money, then I guess I'm screwed. So I did all that. I started building. I remember like Thanksgiving night, and I'm going into this big empty basement. It's just a concrete space. There's like these old water storage tanks. And I started framing out the room with 2x4s. And then I started using insulation, vapor seal and insulation. And I basically built a big snake room, and, building caging out of like wood and melamine and FRP and all sorts of different lamps. And I didn't know what I was doing. And did it put you to sleep? All right, there you go. So
no, you didn't put me to sleep. I'm listening.
So I was just keeping all these animals, and I wanted to breed stuff, and I was also getting in animals. So I would get animals from importers, and then what I would do is, I was very keen on learning about medical stuff, about parasites, about because these animals come in out of the wild and they have a good parasite load, and I'm like, I'm going to teach myself about parasites and learn how to identify the parasites and the proper treatment. So I started learning because I wanted to deal with all these different animals. So even though I wasn't going to keep them, I really enjoyed playing with star tortoises and all this different stuff. But they come in, and if I just take that animal and I were just to resell it without acclimating it and stabilizing and getting them and eating and maybe get the worm load down, I would just be flipping animals, and then they probably fail on somebody else. So I would then start accumulating more and more stock so I could slow down the passage of time that before I needed to go and sell that animal. And I was just, accumulating all sorts of stuff. I would get Amazon tree boas. I'd get, emerald tree boas, green tree pythons, blood pythons, and I'd start worming them, and I'd start doing that. And once they were feeding and doing well, then I would start selling them. So I kind of always, you'd see my ads in the back of like Reptile Amphibian magazine and Notes from Noah and all this different stuff. And it was like New England Reptile. So my name. So the name of New England Reptile was, I was kind of like, well, I can get any reptile. So I go NE Reptile, right? So like any reptile, like, well, it's New England Reptile. And I'm like, well, God, if I wrote New England Reptile Distributors, I'm like, it's nerd. And I'm like, I'll be like a dork. And I'm like, so I was kind of like, did it as like tongue in cheek, just like kind of making fun of myself. But I was like, nerd, New England Reptile Distributors. And I kind of shifted out of any reptiles because I really wasn't into like, I'll get any reptile. But, I was trying to figure out anything that would make it so people remember you. And then I would do these ads, and I'd be like, quality, and then and no junk. It was always no junk in my ads. And so people would call, hey, I saw your thing and you said you don't sell junk. And I kind of built that kind of brand, taking that little bit of extra attention. And obviously it's cutting my teeth, learning more and more about these animals, with successes and failures, certainly breeding and all that, but just basically stabilizing animals and acclimating animals and getting them so they're pet worthy for people. And right. That's what I did. And it allowed me an opportunity because I had a customer base that, hobbyists and, stores and all this different stuff that wanted like a little bit better than if you go into like a reptile dealer that just imported the stuff. So I kind of built a name for myself in that way, and it just continued.
I love that, man. I need to understand this is history. We are talking about the beginning of nerd. I love that. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be honest with you, Kevin. You're probably gonna be mad at me saying this, but I want to meet that guy that almost took you out, because if he would have took you out, we would have had nerd. So I want to shake his hand and say thank you for taking the lugging us off this wheel and messing with Kevin so he would start nerd.
Yeah, it's pretty funny how the whole thing transpired, because we went from a hobby to pretty much a thriving industry, the reptiles. And I think we're kind of heading back to the hobby again, because let's face it, I mean, the world is getting to be tough. The reptiles we're keeping, it's tough. People's perception of the animals are tough. The availability of certain animals is, in some cases, it's gone if we're not breeding this stuff. But a lot of different states and federal, legalities and what they decide is safe and what you can keep and what's invasive and blah, 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 blah. We're losing so much of that. So it's really changing, and we don't, have the thriving ball python machine, which clearly I was a huge part of that.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about that.
Yeah. So now, I think a lot of us are keeping these animals not because of a financial thing, because, if we're keeping reptiles and we're breeding them and we can actually make money to help pay for the racking, pay for the food, pay for the rent, the electricity, pay for more stock, that is the ultimate formula. And we didn't have that in the beginning. We went from the hobby and you didn't have this business model, and we moved into a business model, and now we're moving out of the business model because, let's face it, reptiles are expensive to keep. Everything's expensive to keep. And, it's like, so I'm very, very based in reality, because even though I have New England Reptile and you might think I have all these amazing animals and blah, 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 my bills are so huge and they're so whatever. And I'm not a good business person. I'm an animal lover, and my, everything I do, like I just got back just in time. I was doing Blanding's turtle conservation. I do every night. I go off and do Blanding's turtle conservation. I got back from India, and the first thing I'm doing is right back walking these areas looking for nesting female Blanding's turtles, because we protect the nests and the eggs. And then right before the eggs hatch, we dig them up, we hatch the eggs, and then the eggs go into these our partners, which are like head starting classrooms. So we put these little Blanding's turtles into these classroom environments so the teachers can kind of have like a living biology experiment. The little kids are weighing the turtles, they're graphing their growth, measuring them, noting what they're eating, and it's like a living science experiment that you're teaching the kids about these very, very important animals that are in a diminished ecosystem, and it's a living model. And I've been doing this one project, Blanding's turtles, spotted turtles, snapping turtles, painted turtles. For this project is 7 years. I've been doing wood turtles since 2011, and I do some alligator stuff. I even do monarch butterflies. I'm like obsessed with monarch butterflies and pollinators.
I love it. That's what it's about, the conservation of animals. I love that. I love that. Now, I want to talk about, because we're going to get into the snakes and the reptiles in a minute, but I got to ask you. So a lot of people don't know this, but back in the day, you started your YouTube channel. It was all you. You were doing everything. What made you want to kick it into high gear and say, okay, I got something here. I want to kick it up. What made you say, I need a video editor, and I want to take this further than what I'm doing?
Okay, so obviously I've gone kind of quiet. Like I think you can understand. I just heard you talking about it. Like sometimes we need breaks. Like we do. And so I was doing all these, I call them bubblegum videos. I just pull up my phone and I just start talking about what I do. And I didn't think that was really interesting, but other people were kind of telling me, like Rafi from, MA Balls, Rafi Martinez. And he's just like, people want to hear this stuff. And I was like, just completely like absorbed. A lot of times like I post and then I never go back and look at anything. So I was doing that kind of stuff. And I think probably for a while, I had no concept that what I was doing was interesting or unique. And then I started like listening to Rafi, and Rafi was like, what you're doing is like really weird and people are really interested. And I didn't really know. And he kind of like started exposing me to that. And so I started doing that. And then I was just doing my bubblegum videos, because I don't ever generally plan what my video is. It's not scripted. It's not anything. It's like, I literally just, and it's generally the first take. So anything you generally see, it's what I just go, mistake or not, or me rambling with, I have, severe attention deficit disorder and all this stuff, but I try to hold it together. And I just kind of flow and then put out that information. And there's enough people that really like it. One thing I just noticed, have you seen these, the glasses with the camera in it?
Yeah.
That is going to probably make me start doing some videos, because if I can have something that's seeing as what I'm seeing, because I'm always sitting here with the stupid camera, or I have like Andy, and Andy lives, far away. And I want to, like, if I want to film, like, I'll be sitting here like, you know what? I think I'll go film something right now. And if I can just put these things on with the camera, I can start going, hey, this is how we start taming this animal and whatever. And that's what people are like, really, whatever. So I just saw these glasses. Johnny, my guy Johnny, just bought a pair and he put them on me. And I was just like, oh my God, I can actually do some things. So I'm going to start filming some stuff, because, it's just, I just want to do it. It's like, I do not thrive on social media. Like, social media to me is a way for me to connect with my audience. But, I am about what you see is what you get. Like, I'm literally just going to kind of, with my mistakes and all, like, my flaws or whatever, it's just, but I'm just going to show you what I think, like, and stuff like that. And I have enough of a core audience that seems to appreciate it. But, I've starved them, and I've really kind of like left them hanging. So hopefully I kind of come out from under the rock, because I still have a lot to say. And when I did bring on Donnie Donnie had some videography experience prior, and so I brought in Donnie. Like, I've never had somebody just like filming me and stuff like that. And I will tell you, I'm kind of a little bit of a troublemaker because there's certain things that I see out there that I don't like, and I kind of want to go after things. Like when I see, so one thing I went after was the Reptile Channel. Do you remember that?
I remember that. Yeah.
So the Reptile Channel became my focus. I was like, these people are horrible, and I cannot believe they're having all these little animals being swallowed on YouTube. And that kind of triggered me because I started watching like water monitors eating a mother rabbit's babies, and then it ate her, and then going into a cage with 200 baby chicks and it's eating all the chicks, and then crocodile monitors eating little rats. I love rats. Right. I love mice, and I have massive animal empathy. Like everything in me like hurts over animal suffering. I can't get over it, and I'm bothered by a lot of different stuff, injustices and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm human and I do bad things in my existence. I drive a car, I will eat some meat, but I really appreciate animals. And so I'm doing, why I'm here, I'm trying to do as much positive things for animals. So I went after the Reptile Channel, and I kind of was like, all right, Donnie, I want you to do a deep dive on this. I want to find out what's going on. So he comes up with this vor stuff. There's people, their kink is watching things being eaten alive, or their fantasy is to be eaten alive. I had no clue. So he tells me what vor is, and I start looking, and then the guy that had the Reptile Channel had like a tally thing. He's like kittens and puppies fed.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was really bad. It was kittens and puppies fed to other things, and ducks and rabbits and blah, 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 blah. Some things we should go, okay, that might be normal, but it starts kind of like, kittens and puppies or whatever. And we went really hard after this guy, and we took them down. And if anybody doesn't know what the Reptile Channel was, what it was on YouTube, hey, we're going to tell you about anacondas. And they have like a woman narrating this. Oh, look at this amazing anaconda, a massive predator with mass sizes and all this different stuff. So they give you a little bit of history, and then they show this animal crawling. And this looks like a reptile lover trying to teach you something about animals. But then every video, it's like, now we're going to watch it eat everything.
Right.
And it was just like really shocking. And the thing that really bothered me, Derek, was like, I'm aware how we are perceived as the hobby, because I don't want people to think that reptile people or exotic animal people are like these horrible freaks that have no value. They keep reptiles because they want to watch them murder little animals. And everything to me was like, it was representation, and it was putting us in a poor light. So this channel was like looking like they're one of us. And then they come and do this horrible stuff. And you're like, oh, look, mama rabbit. Oh no, look who found her babies, and it starts eating the baby. The rabbit was nursing. It's nursing baby rabbits. And they let a water monitor come in and start eating its babies. And then it ate the rabbit, the mother rabbit.
Sad.
And it, to me, it was like, it's going to make us look like monsters. Like that's all we want to do. So I was like, this is a really poor representation. I was talking to Brian Barczyk about it, and I'm like, Brian, you have this giant following, and why don't you take them out? Well, I'm not really, in that controversial shit. I'm like, fuck that. I'm going to take these jerks out. And I went after them.
Can I interrupt? Do you ever see yourself going back to that style of content?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, it's
interesting.
I want to go after, like, let's look at iguanas in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have an animal that's not there because of us originally. We have iguanas that were in Florida in the 40s. It's documented in books. So 40s, 50s, 60s. There are iguanas in Florida before we even knew what a heat lamp was, that they need, they're ectotherms, they need heat, that they get metabolic bone disease. What do they eat? Blah, 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 blah. So we are not the reason why iguanas first inhabited Florida. But of course, we can get blamed because we certainly helped later, much, much later. But right now, the things that they're doing to iguanas, you know, like it's a free-for-all. So we have public enemy number one, and they're, you know, shooting arrows through them. They're shooting with BB guns, harpoons, smashing them to death, crushing their spines, doing all these different things. And like, what exactly are iguanas doing in Florida that justify like this complete, like just this harvesting of them? Because they're doing some really gnarly stuff, these iguanas. I don't know if have you seen the videos where like in the schoolyard they catch an iguana out on the pavement and the kids are running in and stomping it to death?
I've seen some crazy videos on it, yeah.
Okay, so if
It's
these,
that.
like some domesticated animals, like a kitten, a puppy, a whatever, a ferret, whatever, we would be losing our minds. But because they have been mired in some cloak of invasive things. So FWC, so Florida Fish and Game, essentially has put a target on iguanas. But what is the threat of iguanas? They've been there forever. So tell me, what are iguanas doing that justify public enemy number one?
Nothing really, just living.
Okay, so to me, right off the bat, so we have things like PETA, and we have all these animal welfare things completely turn a blind eye to a herbivore that is eating somebody's hibiscus. So they try to say, I love this one, salmonella. They try to say salmonella. Or then they try to say that they're digging burrows into the drainage ditches or something like that. So this is all you got. So they've been there forever. And that's literally, so I guess if they're going to talk about like a spiny land iguana, maybe, because that's going to be, it's going to make a terrestrial hole. But we certainly know that green iguanas generally, unless they're nesting, they're arboreal. So they're in you know, bushes up into trees, a lot of times around water. They're not doing anything. It's all garbage. It's misinformation. So we've already made Burmese pythons public enemy number one. And you can justify that with Burmese pythons more so. But with green iguanas, so we've just done these horrible things now. So we're shooting with pellet guns. We're stomping on them. We're doing all this different stuff. And I would like to do a video of that, because what it is, it's misinformation that has been dispersed to the public to make them hate them and justify the killing of these animals. But when in fact, the green iguanas are not going to go away, because there's enough of them going to still remain, and they're really not doing anything. So we've just created a free-for-all on these animals. And what we're doing is, when we act crazy about these animals, we're justifying the hatred and the contempt that the public sector has for our animals. And it pollutes and it miseducates the common person about reptiles. And you've, like, once you decide, okay, we can kill green iguanas, then we're going to justify why you shouldn't be able to keep a king snake. Like, you have parts of Europe, king snakes are illegal.
Oh, wow.
Illegal. You cannot have a king snake. You could have a bunch of other snakes, but they have targeted king snakes because in one little area of Spain, California king snakes have become invasive. They let them go, and they actually can reproduce, and they're living there. So now they decided, well, if they can live there, we need to make them illegal in Europe. And remember, what is very important to me are the abilities and the choice that people get to have. I want to keep a king snake. I want to keep a veiled chameleon. I want to keep all these different things. And I believe I'm a hobbyist, and I believe in the value of other hobbyists such as you. I believe that you should be able to keep as many cool animals as possible. You know, we're not asking you to keep like a tiger or a lion that might get loose and eat your neighbor or something like that. You know, you want to keep, blue tail monitor or whatever. So animals in the wild are all vanishing. And if we don't have connections to these animals, we don't have value, and the animals will disappear even faster because we just don't care anymore, because everything is going to be replaced by the phone. You know,
Right.
So you got me to go off on a tangent.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I love it.
I have reasons, but yes, I do want to be controversial and stuff like that. I'm not passive. I'm not a pacifist, even though some people might think I am. I'm a bit of a troublemaker at times, but I only want to be a troublemaker about things that are going to hurt us in the hobby. Things, people that are doing stuff that I guess maybe that to me is over the top. And it's really, really weird. If you go look at YouTube, I was demonetized from YouTube for over a year. I got blacklisted because I was doing, I did like a medical video. I gave a ball python a shot. I lost my 255,000 Facebook followers or whatever, because I did giving a ball python a shot. I got my whole New England Reptile page taken down. And YouTube somehow has decided that my content is dangerous, but I can go and pull up like 75 night kills, and I watch a video and it's somebody with a varmint calling in foxes, coyotes, and bobcats and shooting them in the head, killing them. And my content is somehow targeted. So I got into it really, really, really bad. You don't even know what I went through. So I got reported to my district attorney's office. I had to go in. I had the district attorney of my state start contacting me saying that they need to meet with me. And then they had some allegations against me, and they wanted to know if I was going to get an attorney. And I was like, no. And they were like, well, we have complaints against you. So I saw the complaints, and I'm like, these complaints are like insane. Like, it's just like riddled with lies. So I had to go in, and I had to go and get deposed. I had a video deposition in front of district attorney with a forensic paralegal, and then the New Hampshire Veterinary Board.
Sheesh.
And they put me through it. And they had all these questions. And they're like questioning me, how did I learn like the medical stuff that I do? Am I doing this on other people's animals? Like, am I charging people? Oh, am I smoking crack? Am I drunk when I'm doing the surgeries, right? Because I made a comment, because Chandler, like Chandler's little, my crack pipe thing.
I remember.
I'm like, yeah. I go, I'm drunk and I'm on drugs when I do a surgery on one of my animals, right? And I don't like show that, I've just hit this animal with, xylocaine and give it a bunch of shots 20 minutes before something or whatever. I don't go into, all of that stuff, but there are so many people that are really offended. Like, I had a vet going after me, a couple vets. Do you remember, I did the video Dr. Death, the guy.
I do remember that.
And I stick to that, because if you know what the story was, I was contacted by a guy in Canada who came home from work one day to find the authorities and Dr. Death at his house, because he had permits for reticulated pythons and a couple other things, but he bred his retics, so he had more snakes than what was on the permit, and he had like maybe like Timor pythons or brown water pythons or something else, maybe amethystine pythons, I can't remember what it was, and he didn't have them on his permit. So the authorities were at his house to basically raid his house, and they said, well, you only have, let's say, I don't even know what the number was. Let's say you only have 2 retics on your thing. Well, you have 38 retics. So Dr. Death was there to euthanize all the animals that weren't on his permit. And the guy was freaking out. He was super upset. And ultimately, he got a retic that came from me through other hands and whatever. And he's like, can you help me? You know, can you help me? You know, this guy and all this stuff. So I basically went after Dr. Death, Adrian.
I remember that.
And you know, and the guy's a clown. He's a clown. He's a vet, and he gets paid by the authorities. And he killed this guy's animals. He did heart sticks and killed them all in front of the guy. And the guy couldn't do anything. They said, if you want to, you know, create a scene, we're going to arrest you. So he kills his animals. So then I start going a little deeper, and I find out there's all these other people that start telling me stuff about this guy. This guy is a monster when it comes to animals. And I couldn't rat them out because I didn't want to create problems for them. But they said that he would make them miserable because he is, you know, he's got the authorities' ears and all this stuff. You had a guy that did a video on a constipated blood python, and this guy went through it just for trying to use a catheter and a syringe and put a bunch of fluid up the snake's butt and try to free, you know, the constipation. And they try to file charges against him and all this different stuff. So the thing with YouTube, I can't always tell my whole story. You know, I can't go and say that. And so we only see little glimpses. And, but I do, you know, I do want to tell more stuff. I mean, when they grabbed the guy's collection in Florida and they're using the captured bolt and killing all his animals, because the people in Florida can't speak out. They need somebody like me to come in there and try to help them, you know?
Right.
And I'm an advocate for our hobby. I'm an advocate for people when I feel like, you know, something unjust is happening to them. And that's the kind of stuff that, you know, that drives me. I'm not doing this because of business. I do conservation because I love animals. And I do a lot of the videos about how to socialize animals because I love the animals so much, and I want to give people maybe a better way to kind of reach their animals and show what can be done. And I'm just like that autistic person that just learned some of these weird ways, and I just wasn't aware what I was really doing was, you know, that special until I started showing people, and then people, you know, reading people's comments. You certainly, you know, like if you do a video with somebody and you start reading the comments, which I know you do, and then you're answering to them, it gives you, it justifies sometimes when you think you've come across an angle or a person or something, and it justifies what you're doing. It's not like you're going, hey, I just made $7. You're like, you want to authenticate the quality of who you are, what you're doing, and then when you present it and you have people that are appreciating it, that is the fuel,
right,
that gets you doing it. And I have many, many different things that are my fuel. But if I go and do videos on conservation, I'm going to bore everybody because it's not, you know, the most exciting thing. When I was doing stuff with Donnie, I would like, hey, let's go do socialization stuff. And he's like, dude, you're boring. Because Donnie wasn't an animal thing. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah, dude. And then I'm like, how so? And he goes, you're going to talk about how you socialize a monitor. And then he starts insulting me. He's like, you're just going to say this and this and this. He goes, I know everything you're going to say. And I'm like, really? Screw you. I'm not doing the video. And then I'd go off pissed. And we wouldn't film anything. So he and I would start fighting, and it was we would kind of bicker, and then whatever. So it was that kind of thing, and but it was actually probably a pretty good dynamic. I have Andy, and Andy's wonderful, but Andy's he's also very agreeable, and he's very happy, and I tend to not be filled with flowers and roses all the time. A lot of times I'm mad and upset or whatever. So sometimes I want to gripe, and I want to talk about something that maybe is politically correct or whatever. That's why it was kind of nice to do some of those, videos that were more, confrontational. But as you know, like, my mindset can change, and like, look at the animosity that Chandler and I had, and I went after Chandler, he went after me, ragged on me, whatever, but I have zero animosity towards Chandler,
Right.
like I think I'm pretty cool with Chandler now, and I don't talk to Chandler, and it's amazing the beef that Chandler and I started with. It was like a complete misunderstanding. He did not understand like how I talk in a message or whatever, and it was like, I don't even understand how like he and I like were ever even at odds, because I have somebody like Tyler, and I get along great with Tyler, and Tyler's buddies with Chandler, and Tyler's like, I don't even understand, and I'm like, I don't really understand, and then but it was it was kind of fun, kind of Chandler and I going at it too, because I like to fight.
Right. Eventually you'll get back to those videos and we'll see them. But now I got a couple more questions for you. I want to ask you first, before we get into the snakes, because that's what I want to talk about mainly. But I got a hot seat question for you. WWE wrestlers, they have songs that you don't mistake. Like when Stone Cold comes out, he has like the glass break in, and the Rock. They all have their own theme song. Let's say you were a WWE wrestler. What song would you come out to? What would be your entrance song?
Metallica for Home the Bells Toll.
I love that.
That's just, I remember hearing that. I mean, obviously I'm into music and metal and all sorts of stuff, but the riffs, just blah. It's just so good. I love horror movies and stuff like that. So yeah, so something like that. Do you know who William Regal is?
I do. You're the wrestler. You know him.
Yeah, he's the commissioner. He is such I shouldn't even say this, but he's the most wonderful guy. I've known him for a long, long time, and he loves reptiles through the roof. He is just the most avid reptile lover. Reptiles are just part of his life, and he's just a wonderful guy. And he would bring, he brought Stone Cold and stuff like that to my place before. So he would bring, he brought.
Hold on. You telling me Stone Cold Steve Austin's been the nerd?
Yeah, he's brought Ric Flair, and
you met Ric Flair?
Yeah. So
what?
I'm like, whatever. There's a guy named Abbott. Like, this dude was giant. Like Abbott, I don't know what his name was, but he was huge. Just like a mountain of a man. And Regal is he's wonderful, and he would always talk about reptiles and stuff like that. So he's great.
Super insane. This is crazy. Kevin has met William Regal, Stone Cold, and Ric Flair. This is crazy. Now, I want you to go back, because like I said, you are one of the pioneers of our hobby, and I want people coming into the hobby to know that you are the reason we have some of these morphs. So let's talk about ball pythons. What are some of the first projects and the morphs that you created? Like, you were in the room when these morphs happened. Take us back to that.
All right. So ghost ball pythons. The first ghosts. Let's see. Pastel jungles.
Now that was let me interrupt. Pastel Jungle, you were in the room. I remember, because I was trying to get this guy. I've been trying to get this guy for the longest. Greg Graziani.
Yeah. So what was really interesting, I had a Pastel Jungle male, and I bred it. And I bred it to a female, and I hatched only 3 babies. And I think 2 or 3 of them were females. So I bred a pastel to a normal, and I hatched normals. I raised them, right? Yeah, here's one of my, Tara just brought me a book. Here's one of my first books, yeah. And I raised them and bred them back to the pastel. And I was down in Orlando, and my guy is like, something crazy's coming out of the egg. And it was the, you know, the first Pastel Jungles. And then I was at the reptile show. I was at a reptile show, like, I think it was like a year later. And I go to Greg Grandiziani's table, and he's got Pastel Jungles. And I'm like, but they were different looking than mine. And I'm like looking at him, and he's telling me about them. And he goes, he bred his snake to a normal or whatever, and he made pastels the first time. And I'm like, what? And I didn't realize that they were incomplete dominant. I thought it was recessive, right? So I'd already gone through the thing. And prior to that, I was breeding this ball python. It was like this high yellow ball python with like this white edging. And it was just like a really clean ball python. And I would breed those, and I breed it to a normal, and I'd make like these pretty ball pythons. But when I got the Pastel Jungle, I was like, oh, this is way better. So I started letting those go, and I let an animal go to Vin, because I was selling a lot of these like lemony looking ball pythons. I was selling them to this one woman who wanted just really pretty ball pythons. So I sold Vin one of these animals. That ended up being the diamond. You know how he made the blue-eyed Lucies? Because I never bred them back to each other. So that was the Vin. The het Vin was from my stuff. And he had just gotten it, and then he just followed through, and then he bred them together, and he made blue-eyed leucistics of all things. So I had already reproduced the diamond. And so I did the ghost ball. I did the Pastel Jungle. I did the first fireball, and I didn't know. And I had bred a male, like had this like blonde tan snake, and with no black on it. And I bred that, and I called it a codominant hypo. And then we were calling things codominant when it was really incomplete dominant. Codominant has to do with plants, essentially. So incomplete dominant. So I had this thing, and I bred it to a normal, and I hatched a couple of these lighter colored hypo looking animals. But I had ghost ball pythons, and I was making my first orange ghosts. I was breeding them back, and oh my God, they were smoking. They were beautiful, and they were recessive. And I'm like, well, the ghost ball is way better than my codominant hypo. So I kind of like lost interest. Well, that turns out it was a fire. So then you bred them together and you make super fires, right? So I didn't follow that through. And so then I got caramel albino, and I made the first caramel albinos. And then I got the first spiders, and I made the first spider balls. And then I bred a spider ball to a Pastel Jungle, and I only hatched 3 spiders. And I didn't make any, double. So I started thinking, now mind you, there had never been a double gene python or boa, ever. Okay, I think the only thing we have is like snow corn snakes or something like that. And so this is late 90s into 2000. So then I bred the spider and the pastel again, and I made bumblebees. Those were the first double gene representation of, I think, of any python or boa ever made in the world. The first super pastels, so the first super pastels, then I made the first spider ghost ball, and I called that honeybee. And then I made the first killer bees. So I started naming these snakes because I was super excited about my ball pythons. No one cared. They're like, we're breeding black-headed pythons, we're breeding Woma pythons, we're breeding Bismarck green pythons, we're breeding green tree pythons, all this different stuff. And here I was with the lowly ball python because I was going through shipments, trying to get anything that was weird to see if I could reproduce them. I had like a very private science experiment. And then I started producing a couple things and nobody knew about it. And the internet was just starting. So I would start calling them names. And I was kind of like, I was trying to excite myself. I was trying to excite, everything. I was just trying to excite ball pythons. So I'd give them these, killer bee, bumblebee, honeybee, spider, pastel jungle, ghost, whatever. I was coming up with these names, and it stuck. People started, because at that point we had like albino. We had there was a genetic stripe at Bob Clark's place for years. I was like, oh my God, it's the most amazing thing. Pete Call had the pied ball pythons, and here I was just doing this stuff. And so I go down to Orlando, and I had ghost ball pythons, I had super pastels, I had spiders, I had bumblebees, and Pete Call is down in the he's down in the front meeting area of the hotel. And mind you, every who's who was coming through here. And because Orlando was it. Orlando was the just of all ball python, all reptile breeders, that's the place to go. That's where you see the cutting edge stuff. You see every new thing. And the place was packed. The excitement, there was static electricity in the air. There was so much energy. And here's Pete Call. Pete Call, the pinnacle. He's got, albino boas, and he's got so many albino boas. And then he's got these pied balls that he's, he hasn't produced pieds yet, but he had them. And he got them from Noah and all this different stuff. And I was like, my God, giant white blanked out snakes. And I was like, whatever. So here I am. I've got this bin, and it's a Rubbermaid sweater box. And it's filled with all of these really nice, fat, yearlings and that year's baby ball pythons. And they just look beautiful. And Pete comes over, and he's like, he's larger than life. Asshole, what do you got there? Asshole. And, he's like, yeah, you freak. You and your stupid ball pythons. And I opened the thing, and he's like, what the hell? And he's like, let me see these. And he's like, and he just takes a bumblebee and he runs away with it. And he goes, you see what this asshole's doing and all this? And he's like, what the hell is this? And he's freaking out. And he goes around and starts showing everybody. And that was like the moment where you kind of like, you're giving yourself kudos, because no one was caring about ball pythons. You were like, I'm on to something. And he started the buzz because he was losing his mind. And we had this guy offer, so Lindy was my partner on the spider ball. We had this guy, Ira, and this guy offered us like $100,000 for the 3 spiders. Right?
$100,000?
Oh, yeah, right then and there. Yeah. He was right at the. So that was, I think, like the year before or the year before. I can't remember. And so I had produced 3 spider balls, and I was showing them off. And he goes, "I'll give you like $100,000." And he had plenty of money. And oh my God, $100,000. Like, I was like, I didn't have any money. I built all my stuff from nothing. Just worked like, just fastidious and just super motivated. And
please tell me you did the deal.
No, I didn't do it.
What?
No, I didn't do it. And Lindy was like, I give Lindy kudos because Lindy would have probably loved it. But he's like, let's do it. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. And then he's like, okay, you made them, because I produced them all and stuff like that. And so we didn't do it. And, it wasn't about the money. I didn't have money, so I didn't if you don't have money, maybe you're a little bit more isolated. I think if you have money and you lose all your money, then you're constantly, I want, this aspect in life. I was used to like working for every little thing, so, I just, every penny I could scratch up was always reinvested in my animals, better caging, better this, better that. And I built it all from nothing. So I was okay with that. And
okay,
I had a long.
I got to interrupt. So you said this guy offers you $100,000 with these 3 spiders. Okay, let me ask you this question: when was that first big sale that you said I'm on to something? When was it that you made a big sale? Like, okay, I got something here. I got something.
Oh, it came. So Pete was harassing me for a bumblebee, and so we broke. So the first bumblebees was 45,000. Bought a bumblebee male for 45,000. I started selling. The first spiders were 22 for females, 25 for males, and we didn't know if there was a super spider, and because I had proved the first super pastels. I called them opal pastels. They were like my lemon pastel, but I didn't realize that I had this fader gene. I had this fader gene that was in there. So when you breed it together, you make super pastels, but then you make these super pastels, super faders or faders. So it kind of like, it's really, really confusing because there was no groundwork for any of this. I mean, I was doing this all on my own. And so, just like learning, and, I was just like obsessed, it's just like breeding stuff. And you're just like fantasizing, like what was going to hatch, what was in the egg. And, you're basically creating, living art and, real time, science experiment. So it was pretty crazy. But the spiders, like the ghost balls were going. My first ghosts, I think I sold for like 2,500. Pastels started at 2,500 and then they shot up to 7,500. My lemon pastels. And I was kind of blown away when I saw Greg's, and I'm like, I've made this, but mine looked different. And then I was thinking, oh, mine's recessive, and Greg's got this thing that's co-dominant. I had to get one. I bought one from Greg, because I wasn't quite sure if it was the same thing, but Greg was the one that got me to realize that, wow, it could be, this co-dominant thing. And because I was dealing with everything I was dealing with was like mostly recessive. The ghosts were recessive. The caramel were recessive. So I had to make the first ones and then raise them up and breed them back. And so kind of whatever. Then came the coral glow. The coral glow was in Africa, and the snake was held by Noah, and it wouldn't eat, right? So it was this male, and he came in, and he had some injury on him, but he wouldn't eat. And so I started assist feeding it, and but it was a crazy looking snake, so we called it the white smoke, right? But it was not in good shape. Noah had it for like a year, and it was like declining. And so I think Noah decided this thing's gonna die. So we got it. Lindy and myself got it. And I got it to breed. And I got it to breed a spider. And I hatched out 2 coral glow. I called them coral glow because it was like ridiculous. And I hatched out 2 babies, and it was just like, what the hell? No spiders in the clutch, just a couple coral glows and I think normals. Or no coral glow spiders, at least. Maybe there's a couple spiders in there, but there's coral glow. So it was incomplete dominant. Then the male got this like brain thing where he started jittering. And then I remember with horror, taking him out, and he starts biting at the air and doing this jitter, and then he started having seizures, and he ultimately died.
Mm.
So I had these 2 coral glows, and this guy Will Slow had this other snake, and like I think like a year later he bred that and called that the banana, right? But you know I already laid down all the groundwork, called it coral glows, blah blah blah, and then we had the sex linking. So I posted a picture of a coral glow online, and it's just ridiculous looking. And then I started getting harassed. There's this girl, I think it was a girl, and she's like, "You make me sick. You're so greedy. You just doctor pictures because you'll do anything for a buck." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "You photoshopped that." I'm like, "No, I didn't." And, "Oh, yes, you did. No snake looks like that." Because coral glows are outstanding looking. It's like, hands down, it's one of the most ridiculous morphs ever. And so she was just being a jerk. And you're gross. You think, like, all you care about is money and with your morphs and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah. I'm the evil morph god. All I care about is money. And that's how evil morph god came. And so once again, sarcasm. I am probably the most sarcastic person, and I'm very interested in making fun of everything, and myself included. You can watch like Brian Cusco interview. Have you ever seen Brian Cusco's interviews with me?
Of course.
Yeah, so I'm totally sarcastic. I do voices and make fun and all this stuff. That's just the way I am. So, tongue in cheek. So I was like, yes, I'm so horrible. And I just I take animals and I just doctor them in, Photoshop so I can sell them and all that. I'm like, the snake isn't even for sale or whatever. So that's how Evil Morph God came to be.
I love it, man. This is incredible, man. We're talking before nerd, the beginning of breeding with nerd. This is incredible. I love it. Now, I got to talk to you because information is always changing, and I kind of kick myself because I wanted to grow on YouTube, and I kind of need to focus more on TikTok because a lot of the younger generation is coming in. But I say that to lead into this, man. Like, I give me your opinion. How does this make you feel? I went online and I wanted to get me a Kevin Mccurley book. He is an author. You are an author. You have wrote a ton of books. Now, I want you to know this. I went on eBay to get a book. Do you realize one of your books was like $300 on eBay?
I don't know anything.
Yes, they're expensive. I was like, you're doing. I mean, do you miss writing books, and how does it make you feel realizing that your books are expensive?
My publisher will publish any book I write. So let's say I do another book. I almost started because I've been going to India. I've been going to a giant animal rescue because let's face it. I want to do something that has value. Like, just deciding I'm just going to be a reptile breeder, and that's it. I'm just going to just breed reptiles into the sunset. I've done it. I've already done it. I've already bred all sorts of stuff. I mean, and I will continue to breed stuff. But if that's my business model, just breeding animals, I'm not fulfilled enough. I want to do conservation. I want to make a difference. I want to teach other people how to breed. I want to manage other collections. I want to help zoos. I want to do conservation stuff. I want to do head starting. I want to do anything I can that's conservation based, that's for slowing the bleeding of humanity that we're laying upon the planet. We're wiping these animals out. So I want to dispel some of my knowledge. Plus, I just want to gain a lot more knowledge. So I've been going to India. I found a purpose and helping there, and it's just it's the most amazing thing when they're going into, let's say, like a meat market in Congo, and they're rescuing every single animal in the meat market, trying to save these animals, and they're bringing them into this zoo environment, this zoo rescue that's being built. This if you go watch Forrest, you know, I brought Forrest to this place, Forrest Gallant, you know, and have you seen the videos?
I do. I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the place. I brought him there and helped bring him there. And I mean, this is a person that's got the biggest heart in the world that does this all for his love of animals and appreciation of animals and his value. And it's not open to the public. It's a very private thing, but he wants to save things. I think he's got like 285 elephants. Each one of those elephants has 3 caregivers. It's unbelievable. And he's, you know, rescuing. Oh, there's 2,000 turtles that are hanging on strings waiting to die, you know, to be put in a cooking pot, and he would try to save them. And it's just like all this different stuff. And it resonates with me. And so it's something that I can help. And I feel, you know, let's be bigger than ourselves. Let's do something, hopefully something that long-term can be very important. You know, they're smuggled 1,500 smuggled star tortoises that if he doesn't take them, they're all going to go into formaldehyde.
Damn.
They kill them. They kill so many of these animals that they're getting caught. So when you see, oh, the smugglers caught this, the authorities just generally, I didn't realize this, they just kill everything. They kill it and just becomes like an artifact of something or a pickled specimen. And it's like, to imagine take 1,500 little star tortoises and put them into formaldehyde in buckets. They have buckets and buckets and buckets. Then you talk to one of these people that work on these things, and they're like, all their job is to catalog all these dead animals. And then they into these bins. And this guy is able to prevent those animals. I mean, a lot of these animals are in really bad shape, but prevent those animals from being, you know, killed, and then at least try to save a bunch of these animals. And with that, you know, you get to rewild them someday or offspring. So anyways, so let's find out where my tangent went. So off to India. What was I even talking about? There you go.
I know, you're fine.
Yes, books, Tara said. So I was thinking when I go out there, because I stay there, I'm going to just write some books. And then I go out there and I get so caught up in it. But I think I'm going to probably do a book on socialization, like reptile whispering. You know, reptile whispering and, you know, just the, you know, the art of, like, I have like a mindset about animals and actually how to, like, not communicate with them so much, but how to present yourself in a fashion that you're not regarded with fear. And you're actually, these animals are way smarter than we think they are. And over time, I've perceived some of this that maybe other people don't perceive. So the little nuances, but collectively those nuances cause me to pause and think about, you know, the animal a little bit differently. And then, like, how can I, like, reprogram this animal's mind or how it behaves around me? Because ultimately you want to see these animals for what they are. What if you have a snake crawling through a tropical forest and the tongue's coming out and it's just meandering along? There's zero ill will. There's no erratic behavior. You're a very curious animal. Its mind is open. It's perceiving its world. It's taking in all this information that's coming at it. And it has no fear. It has no malice. It has no nothing. And the animal, that's what we want to see. We want to see that bull and python with its tongue flicking out, glorious, sweet, where if I'm touching it, it has no fear of me. It has no hesitance. It acts exactly like a bull and python would in an interesting environment. And we all want to play with our animals like that. So I'm trying to figure out how I can interact with that animal and give that animal that mindset where it's not fearing me. So I do the whole thing in modes. So I teach people how to socialize animals. But first of all, you have to look at them. I try to explain things that are simplified, so somebody can like take my novel idea and then they can go, wow, that kind of makes sense. So if we look at animals and modes, you first of all look at the animal and assess it. You know, like what is its mental state? And if I go and try to do something in the wrong mental state, I'm going to fail.
Right.
So if I go and want to hold an animal that's terrified and I'm holding it like, well, it doesn't really matter if I hold it and it's terrified, it's fine. Well, actually what you're doing is when it's terrified and you're restraining it and you're doing all this different stuff, the idea is you actually create a little episode of fear in that animal. So you actually do something that's a negative thing that maybe the next time you go to interact with the animal's disposition is even a little bit worse. So I call that a thread. So, and I call it like threads of trust. So every interaction you have with an animal, especially when you're getting to know that animal, and the animal's getting to know you, is a little thread. It's a little episode. So if I control that episode and then make it a positive episode where I'm not maybe frightening the animal, or if I'm giving the animal space and I'm allowing the animal to go into thinking mode. So we have 4 modes that I assess. Sleeping mode, I want to eat mode. So if I'm a snake in a cage and all of a sudden you walk into the room, you open the cage and your Burmese python comes out, it's in I want to eat mode. It's already thinks that we have something to do with food. So it's connecting you with the presentation of food. So if I go in there, hey, I want to go play with Fluffy, my Burmese python, and Fluffy wants to eat a defrosted rat, I need to read Fluffy and go, wait a minute, Fluffy wants to eat. Fluffy's confused by the movement. So I need to get Fluffy out of the feed mode into a thinking mode. So we have the sleeping mode, we have the feeding mode, we have thinking mode, which is the long tongue flick, which means, you know, your pet ball python, your pet corn snake, your pet leopard gecko, your pet bearded dragon, they're all in thinking modes where you're having a great experience. You're watching TV, your friends are playing with your pet, and everything is great. That's thinking mode because the animal knows what you are. It doesn't view you as a threat. It views you as part of its world, its environment, whatever. It's an experience. And these animals are curious. And they almost, many times they relish these interactions because they want to learn about things. They want to see things. They're not this static-minded animal. And then we have the final mode, fear. Fear mode. Many times we handle animals in fear mode and we are not realizing that even the concept of modes, and we're forcing ourselves on this animal and the thing's wiggling and doing all that. Well, as you're doing this, remember one thing, the animal's recording. It has a little movie camera in its head and it's recording. So now I've grabbed it behind the head and it's like, and it's wiggling and struggling. Well, that animal thinks, oh, I'm being predated. So now the animal knows who you are. It knows what you look like. It knows what you smell like. It knows everything about you that we can't even understand. So now I've just forced my will on that animal. The animal's scared. And then I throw the animal back in its cage. I've just created a negative thread. So what I've done is I have promoted the fear concept with that animal. Well, if I actually try to interact with that animal and keep it in the thinking mode and perceived, I really don't want to put it in this fear mode, and let's build up these positive threads of thinking mode, I can then bypass the fear mode, or I can get an animal out of fear mode into thinking mode pretty quick. So if I take a snake and I'm holding it in my hand and the thing is sitting here with its tongue, let's say it's a baby Burmese python, and it's sitting with its tongue hanging out a little bit and there's not a lot of tongue flicking, it's in fear mode. It's scared. Well, if I sit there and just stare at it, I've done nothing to alleviate its worry, and I'm only going to just keep recording this bad experience. So if I'm glaring at it, my eyes are causing stress on that animal. Right. So one of the first things I'm going to do, I'm going to try to rub the snake. And then what I'm trying to do is get the tongue going. So as soon as the tongue goes in and out, its brain just turned on. So now it's like, okay, I'm experiencing whatever this is. And what I do is I do the soft touch, and you do this like the supportive care, the supportive whatever. And you basically try to have a positive experience. And then what you do, you have the little short, could be 10 seconds, you have a little positive experience, and then you carefully put it back in its enclosure, and you try to remove yourself from the environment before the animal races away like it just escaped you. And if you have that little 10, 20, 30-second episode and it's positive, that's a positive thread, and that animal records that, and then what it does is it downloads that information. And I repeat that, and I repeat that, I repeat that. And very quickly, I realized a week ago, this animal was acting a certain way, and now I can do a little bit more. And I'm noticing I've earned some trust, and I've earned that because of how I presented myself and how I interact with the animal and how I read the animal. And I teach people to do that. And it's the same thing. I grew up around horses. The same thing with horses. Horses are super aware of, like, if you're around a horse and you're acting like sketchy and whatever, you can take a wonderful horse and you can make that horse, which is a very dangerous animal if you're on the wrong side of it. And that horse, your bad juju or your lack of awareness of that horse's state. Well, that horse is aimed away from you, and his ears are kind of cocked back, and he keeps on swatting his tail around, and I'm kind of lurking back here. That horse is telling me, you've got me kind of freaked out. And if I don't do something supportive to that animal and I do the wrong thing, when I get myself around the back of that horse just wails me. I did all that because I'm stupid. But if I go over to the horse and I come around the front and I let the horse engage me, and the horse looks at you and you're touching it and you're doing these things and you contact. These animals, these snakes, even though you don't think it, they do love touch. They love contact. By contact, I get them into the thinking mode. But, I grew up around horses, and somebody happened to tell me some of these things about horses. I listened, and then I became keyed in on horses, and then I started learning more. And it's all applicable. And I go to a chipmunk, and I go to, it could be, an alligator. It could be whatever. But all these things are applicable. And, it works with bugs. Even, like my honeybees. I go and mess with my honeybees, and I don't wear any equipment or anything. And because your awareness, and if you slow down and you let the animals interpret you and then settle, you make a lot more headway. That was a big one.
No, you're fine. I love it. That's what we're here for. We're here to get the knowledge, man, because you have so much knowledge to give us. I love those threads of trust. I always kind of use the reading the animal stuff too. I call it the 3 F's: food, flight, or fight. I love that. Now, we just heard Tara in the background. I wanted to give you a homework assignment. I'm gonna tell you how I got into venomous snakes, and I'm gonna tell you to use this same thing on your lady. So I got 5 years ago, I ended up getting my first venomous snake. I don't have it now because I have a son. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
So my friend calls me. Keep in mind, I have no training, no. I'm still kind of new in the hobby, and he's like, "Hey, I have a copperhead. I want to sell it." So I told my wife, and instantly she said no. So I'm gonna tell you how I got this animal, and I want you to use this method on your lady. So I use what's called the moat method. So she's like, "No, you don't need a copperhead. It's gonna bite you, and your arm's gonna fall off. No, you don't need a copperhead." So what I did was I moped around for 3 days. You got to be real sad for 3 days, and then on the third day, she asked me. She said, "What's wrong?" And you got to look up in the air. You say, "Oh, nothing. Life's just beating me up right now." And she lost it. She said, "Just get it. Get the snake. I don't even care no more." So I call that the moat method. What you do is, like, if you want something,
I like that.
Yes, on her. You use that on her. Yes, it'll work. I ain't gonna lie to you. If you want something with Tara, you moat for 3 days, and then if they love you, they got to give in to it. So on the third day, she gonna say, "What's wrong?" And you say, "Oh, life just beat me up," and instantly they give in. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Life is beating me up every day. It's just like all you do is whine. And I'm like, yes.
Oh.
I love it. I love it. Now I gotta ask. People fell in love with Nerd, and do you ever see yourself doing like a reunion? What I mean by that is, people fell in love with you, Jeremy, Rob, Donnie, everybody. They fell in love with you guys. So do you ever see, even if it's just for like a couple episodes, do you ever see yourself doing a reunion?
Well, Jeremy's very close to me. Rob's wonderful. I've not really been a lot in contact with Rob, but Jeremy I'm in plenty of contact with. So Jeremy, I could easily do stuff with Jeremy. Donnie, yeah, Donnie just, he went off and started doing his cop stuff, and he got this girlfriend thing and whatever, and he just chased after that. So I was just, he went his way, I went my way, but we don't have I have no animosity. But Donnie has tons of my dingo video stuff.
Yeah.
We have so much dingo stuff. And dingo breaks my heart, and Brian breaks my heart.
Of course.
And let me give you a little reality. So Dingo was always trying to get me to go to his place, right? And I love Dingo. Dingo and I just completely clicked. Like, it was just magic. So Dingo's trying to get me to go. Then Brian is going, I'm going to Dingo's. And I'm like, you are? And he goes, and Savannah and Danny from Gatorland, he's like, I want you to go. And he's puts me like on the spot, and I'm like, with Dingo, and I'm like, well, maybe. And Dingo's like, are you kidding me? You would come? And I'm like, well, I'm like, no fucking way. I go, if I walk away from Nerd, the whole place melts. But he put me on the spot, and he's like, would you really come? And I'm like, because I was kind of like just placating. And then I said, well, maybe. So, yeah. And then Brian's like, oh, it'd be great if you would come. It'd be great. And Savannah, and I'm just like, oh. So we were going to go. The whole trick was to go there, do rhino dehorning. We were going to do, we're going to dart some lions and put birth control in them. And we were going to kind of get to see all, the big animals, and, the elephants and hippos and lions and cheetah and wildebeest and zebra. I get corrected plenty, zebra. And we were going to pay because they need money for the rhinos and the elephants and stuff like that. So it cost $5,000. I paid over $5,500, I think, or something like that, right? So I was going to pay $5,000. Brian's going to pay $5,000. Galen's paying $5,000. So roughly $15,000 somewhere in that thing, right? So we had it all. We booked it all out. And then my friend Chris from Garden State Tortoise, him and Casey were visiting Brian, and Brian was like, he was there with Chris, and he's like, oh, I'm having like this pain. I think I got a kidney stone, kidney infection, and it was like really bothering him. And they were filming, so Brian sucked it up and just did that. And then I was talking to Brian. Brian's like, yeah, I think I got like kidney stones, and he was the doctor. And I'm like, whatever. And I'm remembering this. I remember all of this. But we were still excited about the trip and all that. And then as time went on, he's like, there's something wrong with me. And then he called me and told me, he's like, I just got diagnosed. And I was like, but we're going to go see Dingo. And he's like, I can't go. He's like, I got to give it all. And I'm like, it was horrific. So he wasn't going to be able to go. And I'm like, But he's like, I want you to still go. And I'm like, I don't really want to go or whatever. It's like, just go. So we had to pay like pretty much his share of it, because now it was only Gatorland and Nerd. So so we still had to pay the 15,000. So it ended up being like 7,500. But we did it, went there, Dingo, you know, just him and his Kirsty and family and everything, just the nicest people. So anyways, go and have this super experience, and of course I like to drink like elephant shit water.
Yeah, I seen that.
Dingo, that listen, I'm a good sport, right?
Did you get sick?
You can't, like, I'll do pretty much, you know, I'll get as dirty as you possibly can. I'll do crazy, stupid things. I go over there and I got a tick from, I think, a rhino, and I got tick bite fever, and I got sick. And the video where I get knocked over by Henry, the big giant croc, I had probably like a temp of like 103. I was profusely sweating. I was sick. And I didn't know what was going on, because I thought I was like jet lag and all this different stuff. Well, it turns out I had tick bite fever. So ultimately I had to go see a doctor, and that, oh my God. But it was crazy. So anyways, so I start doing this India thing. I'm going to bring Dingo. I'm like, I'm bringing you. And Dingo, like, I'm going to get Dingo's visa and all this stuff. So we're planning a trip. And he was going to probably go in like, I don't know, it was like 5 weeks. Dingo got bit. So I go from Brian to Dingo, and horrified. And you know what came of that. And I'd be in India talking to Dingo, and he's like, I can't wait to go there. I have all the messages. I can't listen to it because it breaks my friggin' heart. Brian breaks my heart. Dingo breaks my heart. Steve, you know, Irwin breaks my heart. All these different things. And it's just like, man, you're just constantly bleeding from these things. But you're right, because these very, very, very important, special people, anytime, can be gone. Like my last trip to India, I'm on Air India, and all of a sudden I start getting all these messages on my phone, because it turns out another Air India plane went down and crashed. And that is another airport that I've flown out of. And all those, that was a 5-minute flight, and 200 and whatever people died. And that, I remember landing, and I was watching the flight crew, and they're all like standing up front, and they're all like gathered around a phone, and they're looking, and they're like, I see like plane crash. And then I was talking to somebody, and he's like, did you see the plane crash? And I'm like, what? I'm like, no, I haven't even looked at my phone. And they're like, another flight that just left at pretty much the same time, just from this other airport south of us, had crashed, and they all died.
That's sad.
Yeah.
God bless Dingo. God bless Brian Barczak. It's saddening, but I take solace in knowing we'll see them again when we get up there.
Yeah.
Now, I gotta ask this. And Lord forbid something happens to you, but like I said, I want the new people to come to the hobby. I want people to come to this. Let's say when this is all done and said, what is one thing you want people to remember about you? What is like that one thing you want people to say, you know what, this is what Kevin was?
I think I kind of like the animal socialization, like whispering, because like, I think I've helped a lot of people resolve a lot of their problems with their animals, as far as you're getting more out of the animal. Because let's face it, you want to have these animals just like your cat or your dog, that's like your best friend. Well, why can't you have a best friend, but it's a tegu? Why can't you have a best friend that's a bearded dragon or a monitor? And there's people that have had an animal that they have no rapport with, like they don't know how to approach it, they don't know how to make friends with it, they don't understand it or what it's telling them, and then all of a sudden they're like, everything's changed, and like I have this great relationship with my tegu or my monitor or my reticulated python, and the only reason that is the case is because this weird person just made up some stupid idea in his little head and then somehow made something work. And then I started showing people with my bubblegum videos and all that. There's people that still revert back to my bubblegum videos. I go to this place in India. You should see the people that I have that watch my videos, even my old ones, at this place, and they're like, oh my God, I watch all your videos, and all the stuff that you do in there has taught me how to deal with this, and to deal with this Komodo dragon, and to deal with all these different things. And that is pretty fulfilling. I mean, if I was, like ego-wise, you'd be like, oh, you want to be known as, you produced all these amazing animals, or I produced more python mutations in the world at one point than anybody else. And I like smoked. I produced like all this different stuff. And I mean, yeah, and you get driven by that, but eventually that's not like, it's not enough. I think I'd rather, you want to break it all down to, what did you do that helped somebody see things a little bit differently? So I think in that respect. So I think I like that.
I love that. Well, you definitely have with me. I love that. Like, I wish I would have listened to you a lot sooner. You changed my mind on a lot of things. And I was young and dumb. I was stubborn, but you changed my mind on a lot of stuff. I ain't even gonna lie to you.
Because you and I have such a history.
I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah, and I give value to that because we started one way, then we were at odds, and then it all came full circle. And I never had a problem. I never had a problem with you. It was just like, just kind of like, let's all get on the same page and like,
I love that.
And like sometimes you have to back out and see the bigger picture or whatever. And you did.
Thanks. I love that.
And I give you, and you know what's amazing about you? You were really persistent because I wasn't having it. I hold grudges but you were like really nice. So I was like, Jesus Christ, I was trying to stay away, but you were really nice. And I was like, it worked. You broke through my defense. And I
love that, brother.
That's great.
Hey, now I follow every video you have, and I gotta say we need more YouTube. But I want to show you one thing before we end this, because you almost gave us an amazing 2 hours, man. Like I said, we've talked about working with Irwin, how Nerd came about, a lot of what you were breeding, the world's first. So insane. But like I said, I want to show you one of my short tails. Is that okay?
Please.
I want to show you one. Bro, give me 1 second. All right, guys. Now this is my Sumatran.
Yep.
My chrome head short tail.
Yep. Chrome headed black blood. Yes. Yep.
I don't know if the video does him justice.
Good man. So yeah, I mean, blood pythons are wonderful. Blood pythons are so misunderstood, and that's an animal that does require finesse to create that relationship with. I'm sure you're aware.
I wanted to show it to you. This is one of my favorites because of you.
That's great. Nice long tongue flick. That animal, That animal doesn't have many worries about you, that's for sure.
And look at that. You see, though, does the camera do the colors justice?
It's a little it's a little overexposed, and of course with chrome heads, they only get better looking as they get mass, and then the melanin starts. Oh yeah.
So I wanted to show one of mine because, like I said, I seen you showing yours. I got this from the Bio Boutique.
Yep.
You ever heard of them?
No.
You got to check them out. They got some good short tails. The Bio Boutique.
Yeah,
All right, let me put them up because I want to play one more thing. Do one more thing before we leave. Oh. Now I have one more. I have one more short tail, but I show that one on another time. Now I want to get your opinion on this. Tell me give me your opinion. Tell me your honest opinion on this. So me and my friends were talking about this yesterday. The dreaded mite situation. Mites. Now watch one of your old videos of how you do the Dawn dish soap and everything. But one of my friends, tell me what you think about this. So he gets the Hot Shot pest strips and he puts them in one of his enclosures. What's your take on that? Do you think that's good for snakes or bad for snakes?
So it's Vapona. It's a Vapona vapor strip. So, okay, long term, I've never seen anything, if it's done right, administered. Obviously, it's essentially a Vapona strip and it's degassing. So in our lives, in our houses, we have carpets, we have plastics, we have all these different things, and they degas, okay? So your carpets are degassing. So you have this Vapona strip, and it's degassing this dio, whatever the hell it is, 5%, whatever that the poison is, and it's killing mites. So if we do it right, which basically is this, is you put it into an animal's cage, and it's a vapor, so it's heaviest on the bottom, okay? So if you have mites in the cage, mites generally, what they're going to do is they're going to climb. They're going to climb up into the corners. So once you have a female that's blood-laden and she's ready to lay eggs, she's going to crawl to the highest point. So if you have a pest strip and it's thrown in the bottom, generally all your gases are going to go down there. So you might not even get those mites. So putting it at the highest point, that's good. Now you remove the water, and generally 24 hours to 48 hours of the presence of that vapor strip being present in there for like a new one, the one that's actively degassing, that I think is okay. And then you take it out and you put it in a plastic bag. So you wrap it because it's gonna continue to degas. So you wrap it up, and then what you do is you come back about 5 to 7 days later, and you do it again for like a day or two, and then you take it out, and then you wait like another 5 or 7 days, and so you do these 3 things. So what you're going to do is you're going to kill, in theory, you're going to kill the adult mites that are feeding. You're also going to kill any mite that maybe has run off that snake, but you might have missed the eggs. You might have missed the egg-laying female. So then when you wait like the next week, then maybe some of those eggs might have hatched, or maybe some little ones that have randomly crawled off come back down to feed on the snake, whatever. And you keep doing this, and what you're doing is you're interrupting the life cycle. We do the same kind of intermittent administration of medication for, let's say, parasites. You're interrupting the life cycles of these things. So no water in the cage, no water dish, because the pest strip is going to accumulate, in theory, in the water. So if I have the pest strip up high, it's constantly dropping the gas, and that gas is going to go in the water. So I have never seen, when done correctly, a long-term something that I can qualify as, oh, this pest strip did this. I have certainly seen pest strips when they do bad things, leaving them too long, leaving them in a cage where there's water. Colubrids, are maybe less tolerant of longer exposure than, let's say, like a blood python. But I think it is a very, very necessary tool for the treatment of mites, because the no pest strip with Dawn and the cleaning of the cage through either heat to kill eggs or kill mites, but you really got to get it up in all the cracks. And let's face it, our reptile caging, we have ventilation, we have vents in the cages. Mites will easily crawl out the vent, go on the outside of the cage. They can lay their eggs. The eggs sit there dormant for 6 months, and then one day I hit them with a spray, and all of a sudden they hatch, and then they come in and start feeding their snake. So I do think that no pest strip is part of your arsenal of tools and methodology that we use to treat yourself with mites. A mite infestation is a horrific thing, and the negatives of a mite infestation, because each mite, if it bites one snake and then crawls off and goes and bites another snake, you're in theory, you have a contagion vector of that mite. It's just like a little hypodermic needle. So mites, in theory, could spread disease, could certainly spread pathogens, bacterium, virus, So I think mites in a collection, and certainly large collections, they are often reality. Mites are they're just a misery in your collection. You can get your collection all under control. Everything's great, and then 2 months later you have an outbreak that you caught you off guard.
Right.
So I do like them, and I do think they're important.
Right. Now, before we end this, because you gave us an amazing 2 hours, man. Like, my mind is blown. I had so much fun talking to you. I want to play a game. Are you down to play?
I do whatever.
Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. If I win, you gotta do something. But if you win, you can give me something to do. But if I win, I'm gonna give you something to do. Are you down to play the game?
Whatever. Sure.
All right, now we're gonna play rock, paper, scissors. Best out of 3. If I win, I get a follow back on Instagram.
Okay.
If you win, what you want me to do?
You can have me back again.
That'll work. All right. Best of 3. All right.
Okay. So, rock, paper, scissors. So, man, this is. So
go. Let's go. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. So with shoot, you got to do your thing.
Yeah. So I got scissors, paper, or rock.
Yes. Now, best out of 3. If you win, you coming back on the podcast. If I win, you're a man of your word. So if I win, you got to follow me back on the gram.
Easy. I would have done that anyways.
Well, this is a fun way. This is a fun way. Best out of 3. All right. You ready?
Oh, sure.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. I see scissors against paper. I won the first one.
Okay.
Scissors cuts paper. I won. That's the first one. All right, now you ready for the second one?
Yeah.
All right, rock, paper, scissors, shoot. See, paper on rock. I won. Paper covers the rock. I won.
So, okay, well, I've already lost.
See, that's best out of 3. So I see, now you got to follow me on the gram, and I still want you to come back on the podcast down the road.
Okay, yeah, I'll do it.
Mr. Kevin, I had such a good time talking to you, man. That was 2 hours, felt like 5 minutes, man.
Yeah, it was pretty good. No, it's great. I appreciate your friendship, and you and I have a little bit of a history, so it makes it even a little bit nicer, right? And
I love it, man.
You're very generous with your kindness and your compliments.
I love it, man. Like I said, you are a pioneer of our hobby. Thank you for giving us a lesson and taking us back in time, because those stories are timeless, man. And I think that the new people coming into the hobby need to hear them. They need to know how nerds started. You know what I'm saying? They need to know you were with Steve Irwin. That's crazy to me. You met Ric Flair. You met Stone Cold. That's crazy. All right, don't go to her. I'm going to put you backstage, okay?
Okay.
Don't go to her. Mr. Kevin from Nerd. This is crazy, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, first episode, we back. Kevin from Nerd. Like, if you watch the show, 2 hours of greatness. Like, how can you speak bad on this man? Like, I ain't gonna lie. He told us about the story of the guy messing with him at work, taking off the lug nuts on his tire, saying he had to get out of his job, and that's why he started Nerd. Like, I need to meet this man. Thank you for messing with him and getting him out of that job so he could start Nerd. Like I said, Nerd are pioneers, man. He's made so many freaking ball python moors. I ain't gonna lie. I wish I was back in the 90s selling snakes for $100,000. Take me back to the 90s. But this man is a pioneer. He's met so many amazing people, done so many amazing things in the hobby, and people need to know it. Even because, like I said, once our pioneers are gone, they're no longer here. You know, and I don't want these people's story to die. I don't want people to forget what they've done. So kudos to Kevin. Kudos to Nerd. I love them all. I don't give a damn how you feel. I love Jeremy. I love Rob. I love Donnie. I don't care. He's Donnie. And you can say what you want. Donnie's good at his job. He got me. I ain't gonna lie to you. He's good at what he does. Great show, Derek. Hey man, Ken, thank you. Again, man, this is Big Reptile Talk, the podcast. We are back. I want to bring people to the platform and just tell their story because there's so many great people in our hobby. So until next time, man, this is Big Reptile Talk. We'll see you on the next one.
Big Reptile Talk.